The meeting to order. We do the roll call.
Terry O'Leary's alternate.
Bob Gilbert, member. Jerry Wade, a member.
Ray Kachasky, member.
Cindy Pecos, member. Wendy Rathgeber, alternate. Cheryl Sanger, alternate.
Who's missing?
Kathy.
Kathy and we have two alternate positions. Cheryl and Harry. Trying to do a rotation here. Review and acceptance of the September 12th meeting.
I just have, oh, no, I read it again. Never mind.
Okay.
Oh, I've got one now, the last paragraph, on the first page. It says there are no new site plan review for changes as they happen in town square. Should that be there is no new, or there are no new site plan reviews? Or, I'm not sure how that should read, but kind of fine. Who's this? Page one.
Oh, it's on page 2.
I read it as if it would read, there is no site plan review for changes as they happen in the town square. In other words, if there was a change in the town square, there's no process of requiring a review. So I think that's what the discussion was. I'm not sure that's the case, but that's what the discussion was.
Okay. I might get that.
So just change the art that there is.
Okay.
Yeah. On the second page, first full paragraph, in January 2007, they did a study to determine if there was adequate parking in the town square, and they found that with all the parking back towards the Black Bear included and so forth. I'm not sure who they was when we had that discussion. Was it,
Transportation committee.
was it Transportation Committee? Probably.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
It
Probably should
was.
clarify
Yeah.
that, they say there was a transportation, as opposed to they on that, Shannon. The second day would be okay if you put first day was transportation.
About, 2/3 down, we've got the boundaries of any proposed forest cuttings or land alterations to accommodate the subdivision. Then the next sentence seems to start with a small and. Maybe we should just get rid of the and say we should move ahead with the proposal.
Yeah, I agree. Minor typos, that's all.
You know, the comments here, I don't have.
Anything else? Have a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the September 12th, 2013.
Second?
As a member.
As amended, sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next on the agenda is a couple of public hearings. On the site plan review application, like Father Like Son Landscaping, construction of the salt shed. I'm gonna open a public hearing, and I'll let Dave present this case.
I just have some information on it to pass around. So that's all fine.
Thanks.
Dave,
Yes.
I get Have an extra one. Included in the packet is a fact sheet from New Hampshire DES. I was in touch with several people from DES over the past couple of months. Ultimately, building a storage facility in there does not require a permit from the state. Okay. Even if I actually put the salt on the ground, it would not require a permit from the state, which is kind of crazy. But so they have in this list the best management practices. Which is what I refer to in designing the structure and the placement of it and everything. Salt storage should absolutely be covered according to the state. It should be placed on an impermeable surface, preferably concrete that's sealed, which is the plan for this one. A lot of contamination issues with salt storage actually happen in the loading and unloading process. Just salt falling off the truck, getting tossed around by the equipment. So they suggest having a concrete pad to perform all those activities with. It also benefits any equipment that's on the pad, any work that's being done can be contained on that pad. So not even necessarily just storing salt. Let's say I was putting gas in a lawnmower. If I had a concrete pad, I can do it on that pad, and God forbid there's a spill, then I can clean it up and contain it. So this provides year-round safety for that area, which is also a benefit. In that packet as well is a design for the structure I plan to put over the concrete pad. It's a heavy-duty, temporary, portable shelter with a steel frame. It shows even green in color, so it would just kind of blend in with the landscape over there. And it's a nice design. It doesn't look cheap, and it's not cheap. Excuse me. There'll be concrete blocks placed around on top of the salt, on top of the pad, placed around it to contain the salt. The inside of those blocks will also be sealed to make it impermeable as well to the salt. I also took into account the ease of loading and unloading the salt, and the placement of the pad is such so that a truck can back right up to the pad, dump it on the pad, and then I can push it into the bin. So you'll notice in the design, it's kind of two pads connected. It's a 20 by 20 pad with an L-shaped 15 by 15 off of that. The 15 by 15 is the storage containment area. The 20 by 20 pad is an area to load and unload. So we can have trucks pull right onto the pad and load everything right up on it.
Before we proceed with procedural thing, Nancy Knight, and if I could show that Nancy's here, and I have to unseat Harry. It's a little tricky one, I think, for us, for the planning board, because I'm not sure how to handle this. I looked at the regulations, and I think, there's no building on it, but I think we can consider it because obviously a construction facility is allowed in that zone. And I looked at the regulations, and I think we could consider it as an auxiliary building.
That was, I spoke with Chris Hodges last week. That was his take on it. It'd be an
That was
auxiliary
his
building.
take on it?
Yeah, because it's a temporary structure
Sure.
over the top. I understand there's no primary building there, but.
Yeah, that's kind of what was my take. I don't know how the rest of the planning board feels about it.
Those are the things I discussed with Chris were the auxiliary building and the setback. He said the 6-foot setback was fine for a structure like that.
That's what an accessory building would be, even though there's no primary building, but there's
I think you could have an accessory building without a primary building.
Yeah.
If the accessory building is supporting an activity
An
that is the main use for the property.
which is in a lot of use.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we're all set with how we're gonna handle it as an accessory building. I think the other thing that bothers me is though, the planning board usually deals with permanent structures. Here we have a tent. And usually that's, you get a tent permit on that.
If there's a concrete foundation, that's a
Yeah.
mortar block wall, I assume. It's not a dry block wall, is it?
They're precast blocks.
Are you mortaring them?
They're from Parsons, they're concrete.
Uh,
Oh, are they gonna be mortared in place?
Right.
No, they weigh 1,000 pounds apiece, so
Oh, so these
they're
are
not going
large.
anywhere.
These
They're
are
2
large
by 2
blocks.
by 4 concrete
So
blocks.
they're just being stacked then?
Correct.
Are they solid block?
Solid blocks.
How high will they be? I didn't see that.
The storage area itself under the tent will be 6 feet high. And then the perimeter of it will probably be 2 to 4 in some spots, depending upon where I'm unloading.
A couple things are of concern to me right now, and that is, number one, we don't see the contours on the plan, so we don't really know how this drains. I'm assuming it drains toward that wetland,
The natural contours.
and it's in reasonably close proximity to the wetland. And according to this regulation, or the requirements or the suggestions that you provided from the Environmental Services, State of New Hampshire, you're supposed to locate it not within the vicinity of a wetland. So you don't show any berm here, or anything that would prevent some, whatever reason, the drainage. Say you get a heavy downpour, these blocks are not mortared. If somehow it infiltrated into, under the cover, heavy winds, whatever might happen, and it drains from the salt area over out to the loading slab onto the ground, has a direct route right to the wetland. I understand that we do put salt on the roads around town, and that's generally what happens, but you do try to minimize it. And even if you did contain it, it would go down through the ground, into the groundwater anyway, but I think it would be less of a direct shot than right over to the wetland. Is there any possibility of putting some sort of a berm there that might somehow impede the flow of the salt to the wetland?
Yeah, that's a possibility. I don't know how practical it is. I mean, if there's any runoff, it's just gonna go, straight leach right into the ground and filter out. So I'm not sure if a berm would help contain it.
Or perhaps even redirect it away from the,
Everything I read, Terry said to build with the natural slope of the land. So to maintain the natural slope, which is the contours run kind of from right to left looking at it. When I talked to the state about the wetlands, they weren't concerned about it because it wasn't in the wetlands. And that's, I understand it says vicinity, and that was a concern of mine as well. But he says as long as it's outside of the wetlands, but there's actually, there's not even any regulations for building one.
so you spoke with someone from the Department of Environmental Services.
About 6 people.
They gave you this suggestion package here, and did you show him this plan as far as where you were locating that with regard to the wetland?
No, I gave them the measurements of where it would be relative to the river and the wetlands.
The river and the wetlands. I noticed it shows a 250-foot setback here from the river, but it doesn't really say it from the wetlands. And he was okay with it.
Completely okay. Like I said, you could put a pile of salt on the ground with nothing underneath it, and the only thing you'd have to do with the state is just register it so they could monitor it, and that's it.
You didn't have to cover it? The state didn't require a cover over it?
A tarp, that's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Could you show us on here how you propose to use this? I guess I'm a little confused. It looks like you drive in here, back the truck up into this platform?
What I do, Ray, is, excuse me, let's assume the existing opening is here now.
Yep.
That opening will be moved over to here. Okay?
On the fence?
Correct. So I'll eliminate this opening.
Maybe you can you put it up on, someplace so everybody
This would be
can
helpful
see.
to put up with the two, just to show what we're talking about.
Yes, can we- yes.
You got it?
Yeah, we're
You got it?
I'm
Yeah.
okay. I can see from here.
So
Okay.
there's a blown up edge of it. But I build an accordion gate here to open up. The truck would back onto this pad. This is the 20 by 20 pad, this area right here that they would dump on. I have a small opening at the end of the pad where the loader comes in and pushes the salt right into the covered area. So this is all fenced in. Truck comes in, dumps, loader comes in, pushes right into the salt bin, and then when trucks need to load up, they back right up on the pad. I grab salt and load them up on the pad.
How does the loader put the salt into the covered area with that?
You push it right. So,
Yeah, how do you get there?
so if the truck enters this way, dumps the pile here, I've got the loader here, and the loader just pushes right into the salt bin here. That's pretty standard practice.
Push
Standard
that way
practice.
and then push it.
Correct. This is all concrete blocks here, up to 6 feet, and then this will be 2 to 4 feet around here.
Also, apparently there's an unblocked area for the trucks to move the salt in and out, and there's gonna be a lot of spillage.
Well, not necessarily. It's a big area for the amount of salt that I will have there. I've intentionally made it probably twice as large as I need to, the loading and unloading area, so to prevent just that.
So
If he's not gonna, there's not gonna be enough salt to dump and it's gonna overflow through any of the gaps. I could probably get away, honestly, with not even having blocks here and no salt's gonna run off of that pad.
How
Because
much,
I'm only talking 15 to 20 yards of load when I get it delivered. Okay?
I guess my initial thought is if the wall were here,
Mhm.
it kind of prevent any seepage down in this direction or towards the wetlands. Could the loader come in from this direction?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can move that wall down so we can have a solid corner here. That's
Solid
what you're
corner.
talking? Yep. Could have a solid corner here and then an opening here,
And
or you can come in here.
That makes it a little hard to, you're gonna end up with a bunch of salt in the corner. The way he's got it.
I was
I mean,
just
that's the most practical for,
Yeah.
it's the most efficient way. But again, I don't foresee there being that much salt that it's all gonna get buried into that corner.
no, my thoughts were if you seal off that corner, that's
That's a good
the
idea.
wetlands.
Yeah.
But that,
Yep.
it's gonna work.
Well, those blocks are dry set anyway, so the water can.
Yeah.
So I think you're better off this way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could look into a, concrete caulk too and seal them up.
Well, that
Seal
just
the
collects the
seams.
water, then you're just gonna end up with a puddle in there, and a salty puddle, and it's gonna end up being pushed out or something, so I don't think it's really gonna solve it. Which, I mean, it's up to you. It's the thing, but I don't see it really improving the situation as far as salt is concerned. What about the, is that slab gonna be placed all in one piece, or is that two separate?
One piece with pressure cracks in it, with expansion cracks, rather. Yep. That's about 11 and a half yards of concrete.
Dave, which way is the slope?
The natural slope of the lot runs this way.
That way?
In a building like that, how do you slope the slab, or do you just do it level?
1 to 2%. A 1 to 2% slope, so I go about 1/8 of an inch per foot.
From the covered area down to the.
Correct. Yep. Anything over that gets a little tippy for the equipment. There's not, like I said, this is a load and unload area. There's not going to be salt in that area for any length of time. It'll all be pushed in and then swept out and cleaned up. So there's no reason you should ever see any material just sitting there.
Dave, will you have any liability coverage on that?
I have liability. I have general liability for the company,
Uh-huh.
$1 million policy.
But would it cover something like that if there was a problem with that area?
In terms of negligent, in terms of
In
somebody
terms of-
walking in there?
No. Some problem with the seepage, with it going into the wetlands or anything like that? Any cleanup type? If there was any issues?
Not to my knowledge. I can look into it.
And during non-winter times, would you be storing other equipment in this area?
Like I said, maybe a mower, nothing toxic or hazardous, or no hazardous materials, fertilizers or anything like that. But yeah, I would definitely utilize it to store some other equipment, absolutely.
Seeing as how the salt is in the covered area, the slope is, of the slab is such that it drains from that area out to the open area. And it would be of my concern that you keep that covered area as dry as possible. So if the blocks containing the covered area could be sealed in some fashion, the joints.
Sure.
Such that the rain coming down, shedding off the roof of the cover doesn't work its way into that covered area. Plus the fact that, and we don't have a detail of it, and I don't know how that cover fits, but the cover should fit such that any shedding water from the cover sheds to the outside of the block. In other words, if you had if you just set this cover down on the block and there was a 6-inch lip on the outside, water running off from the top of the block, run to the inside, drain out. So that should be,
The shelter will extend beyond.
it should extend
So
beyond.
the shelter is 18 feet wide, the pad is 15.
All right, and
So it'll go right over the top of the blocks in the pad.
so that it won't be draining down to the top.
Not at all. No.
That would be, if we
And it's got two
can
doors.
be assured of that, that was good.
Yeah, and each end is enclosed, both ends of it, doors straight down to the ground,
All right, so then you open it up to access it and close that door down.
absolutely. Yeah, it'll be fully enclosed.
It would be nice, those things don't show on here, so it would be nice if they could be made part of the record.
The tent, the drawings of the tent, or the diagram of the tent should indicate that it's fully enclosed.
This is 20.
Have you considered a permanent structure?
I'm sorry,
Have
Ray?
you considered building a permanent cover on it?
I'd love to, if Bill wants to pay for it, that'd be great. But can't afford the expense. This alone is gonna cost around $5,000 to build this, so.
Could you show me where it shows that, how, on this material, where it's gonna be closed at both ends and that it'll shed water?
The diagram of the tent itself should indicate that, Terry. Two double zippered front door panels. Stand down, so this is going to obviously zipper and pull back. So there's two zippers, so this actually, the door zippers and then the extended peak of the roof can pull back as well to create more height.
So where are the doors
Pull back, they're rolled up. It's
up
on
to
a
the
roll-
top?
Yeah, it's our rolling system. Yep.
Is that what this, the line?
Yeah, that's the second, so this is, you can either roll it up to here, which is only about 7 feet, and then there's an additional zipper, which shows here, and you can roll it up even farther, and that's with it fully open.
Is there any way, Dave, of anchoring that back door so that the wind can't blow it, no water underneath?
Yes, absolutely, it can be tied down. The anchor system is all with ratchet straps, heavy duty ties and ratchet straps anchored down into the ground, but that rear door can also be secured. There's flaps on the bottom of these tents that extend down at least, I think, a foot or two. So you've got the tent that comes down to the ground, and then an additional 12 to 14 inches, there's a flap that covers over the anchors as well. And it's pretty heavy duty material. It's not like a camping tent. pad is pretty rugged.
We have a similar tent in the lagoon area that we use to store rec department stuff.
And it's up all year?
And the objective of this is to keep that area dry. So
Yeah.
I mean, if
Yeah.
anything's leaking, whether it's coming through the concrete or something, he's gonna seal it up because he doesn't want the salt to get wet because then it'll freeze and then
Right.
can't use it. So
No, I'm-
that's the whole objective here is to keep that
Yeah.
15 by 15 area dry.
no, I'm comfortable with saying here.
Mhm.
I guess my only concern is that the selectmen are gonna approve the tent.
Yeah, I think
And I
there
guess
should be
we'll
a
have to make
tent,
it a condition that the selectmen approve the tent, because,
there should be a tent permit, just like over at the conference center. They have a concrete pad at the conference center, and every year the selectmen approve a tent permit
Right.
application. So,
That would
and
be
it's
a-
not really the selectmen, it goes to Chris.
I would be a lot less comfortable
Yeah.
if it's not covered, so I think this is a good idea.
Point of clarification, are the blocks outside of the tent, on the outside wall, will those be sealed as well or not?
The blocks will be treated on the inside with a sealant to make it impermeable
Okay,
to
where
the salt.
you are going to be shuffling it back and forth?
Correct.
Terry, I know you'd like to see the contours, I don't know.
Well, it's not a big application, but it doesn't meet the requirements of an acceptable application, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't really have much of a problem with it because I think I can understand what he's doing and I can understand the facility.
Yeah.
You know, if you piecemeal it together as we sit here, and I know his intent is good. So I guess it's up to the board whether or not they want to go through the process of making a formal application.
Well, I think we're all pretty familiar with this particular area, which is under discussion.
Yeah, I think it's understood by the board that does drain right to that wetland.
Yeah.
But as Dave said, he's been to the environmental services department and they said they don't have any problem with it. And verbally, I'm told it's gonna be kept dry.
Yeah.
But we don't have details for the record that would show that that's the case. So I guess I don't really have a problem with it.
Yeah, because, I mean, with 2-foot contours, there'd probably only be one contour going through
Yeah,
this
it's pretty
area
low,
anyway, really. And,
But it does say in the application, you should contours.
yes, I know. The other thing you mentioned, did you want,
Well, I understand what Dave is
Some
saying. I'm sorry.
did you want some indication on how high this was gonna be?
I think that if we just had a little further clarification for the record, that would be nice.
Yeah.
And that would be just a written statement, Dave, that says basically all the things that we discussed here today. I don't wanna make you go through all the engineering and all that, but that the outside blocks of the dry area would be sealed. That the cover drains to the outside of the block area such that it will prevent any water from getting up in the interior. A little clarification on the door, I grant you if I read this, I can see it now that you pointed out, but it doesn't come right out at you with regard to the door. And actually, there isn't a door in the back from what this says, it's actually a solid wall in the back and a door in the front only.
It's an option.
It's an option.
It's an
Well, just-
option to have it zippered or unzippered.
Just say what it's gonna be, that's all. And, so that we can justify saying, yeah, we're comfortable that it was gonna be kept dry and so forth. You might wanna include this as part of the application package. I know you gave it to us separately, but maybe, refer to it and refer to the fact that you'll abide by these suggestions and so forth. That, and, just a general statement that, you went to the Department of Environmental Services, they were aware of the proximity of the proposed shed with regard to the wetland, and that they didn't have any objection to it. That generally, the land slopes from the shed down toward the wetland. But, it was so flat that no requirement for contours. Just kind of a general thing that wraps up what we discussed here today. and then I wouldn't have any problem with
I've got it roughly staked out as well, and any of you are more than welcome to go in there and take a look at it.
that. I'm just interested in getting the record there, so that if there's any questions, this is the reason that we're able to say, okay.
Should he attach some of these, like the attachment from the?
Definitely should be part of the package, yeah.
And I would,
Yeah.
this, should he mention about the extra flaps on, at the base of that tent?
As
I mean,
long
it's
as I have
another-
assurance in the writing somehow that the water shedding from the top doesn't get to the interior of the building. I think that general statement, however you want to do it.
It better not.
With, you know, whether you want to do it flaps or seal it, as long as our intent is written down there somewhere.
The more you put down, Dave, the better it is that it's
Sure.
clarified that if there's an issue in the future.
Because I think your idea, there's no problem with the idea, we just have to get it down, what all the elements of it are.
No problem. Yeah, it's definitely been a learning experience. I was shocked at how little the state wanted to get involved with it. So,
The height of blocks is
Yeah, but doesn't say no volume stack.
so there's some
It does
labeled
somewhere.
A blocks and some labeled B, and they're referenced there. The dimensions of them are referenced.
here. It's somewhere, I found it somewhere. Where does that say? Help me out here, Dave. Where does it say how high those blocks were? I know I saw it.
So A is 2 by 6, so these are, all the blocks are 2 by 2 by 4. So A is stacked 3 high at 2 by 6, and B is stacked, 3 high rather, and B is stacked 2 high at 2 by 4.
Okay, what it says, 2 foot by 4 foot, 2 foot wide by 4 foot high,
Correct.
and 2 foot wide by
That's
6 foot high.
So this is the 6 foot, this is the 4
So maybe we could just put a W and an H.
Sure.
Okay.
No.
I assume you want to get started on this right away so you can have the facade, right?
I need to, yeah.
We could do it since we continue.
Yeah, I think it should be conditioned on the selectmen approving the tent. When do you meet again? When
The
is
tenth, the tenth application goes to Chris Hawkins as a code enforcement officer. It is not a,
Oh, okay.
the selectmen have responsibility for it, but as an enforcement thing, we do not take tent applications to the board.
Oh, okay, so it's.
So it's just with
So it's
Chris.
available.
Yeah. And I'm assuming this will be a recurring annual, you're gonna keep it up and use it.
Is Chris around?
Huh?
Is Chris up there now?
No, they had a call, so when we came downstairs, he was not back.
We just have-
But why, but if you put it, if you approve the plan as presented with the contingency that get a tent
Condition.
application approved,
Yeah.
that's all you really need to do.
Yeah. Then you
Then he can go to Chris
As
and
soon as
we'll
Chris,
do the
right, as soon as
application.
he signs off, it's,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
I just need
And
one
put
more.
a date, put a number of days, so the contingency is that he get a tent application approved within the next 30 days. So by your next meeting, you'll know, you know,
Okay,
Sharon can come back and tell you, yes, he got it approved. And if he gets it approved, you're
then,
good to
then
go.
we're good to go, okay.
I have one more point of clarification just for my own purposes. It was attached to the package, and I'm not sure it was intended to be there, but there's this agreement with respect to trails that was added to the package. Is that something you intended to include?
I put the package together. Your regulations require any easements that are on the property?
Yeah.
That's an easement that's on the property.
Okay,
The
'cause
trail
this,
down along the river is part of that law.
because this indicates that the owner of the property is the ski area.
No, it does not.
This is a,
That was a trails agreement with SKI Corporation, between the Waterville Company and SKI, and that is for successes and assigns.
because the seller was Waterville Company, the buyer was Waterville Ski Area.
the trails agreement is a, the trails agreement was part of the sale of the property.
To the ski area.
Chris, you wanna sell it back?
If I owned it, I would.
Maybe we
Yeah,
don't
sure I
own
do,
it.
actually.
It refers to the,
I understand what you're
sale
saying.
of assets. And this is the trails agreement that was part of the sale of the assets.
And at some point in time, Waterville Company bought it back from the ski area?
No, this does not convey the land.
The easement.
This is an agreement relative to the land, and it's reciting who the parties are, and it refers to them as the buyer and the seller because it's the purchase agreement of the ski area that happened back in '94.
So the Waterville Company owns the land, they're selling the easement to the ski area for the trails?
That's correct. That's sort of correct.
That's how it works.
Yes, this applies to all the trails in town. You've seen, this
Yeah.
agreement has been submitted with virtually every subdivision that you folks have seen. You should have picked up on that before, Terry.
I know.
He's getting better and
He's
better.
getting it, yeah.
Okay, if the board's okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing. You okay with that? Okay, public hearing is closed. We can- we'll hear a motion? Or any discussion, any further discussion on?
Well, I move that the board accept the application of, who is it then?
Like the father and son.
Is it the application by Life by the Way?
Yes.
Find the application itself. This one. Okay, we'll say like Father, like Son Landscaping LLC. Contingent upon, did I say accepted? Contingent upon, what's the 10th requirement you were asking for?
Well, wait a second, you gotta accept it as complete.
Yeah.
Then you'll make a motion to approve it. And when you approve it, then the contingency will be to get an approved tent application, town tent application, within X number of days.
Okay, let me erase that, Sharon, we'll start over again. I move that the application of Lake Father, Lake Son Landscaping LLC be accepted as partially complete. And to the point where the board can move on it. I can't say it's complete because it's not.
I guess I missed that. I guess I did miss the.
Yeah, I'm not really accepting it as complete, I'm just saying,
No, I think what happens, we have to assume that the application itself was complete. These are extra requirements that we're asking for. So I think we want a condition on those extra things that you mentioned.
well, I can't move this complete, but I can move that it's acceptable for further action.
That was my mistake. I should have got it completed. I should have had the vote.
Well, someone else can make it.
No, that's okay.
It would be my motion that the application as submitted is acceptable for further action.
And that's the
Just
first
vote
step.
on that.
Yeah.
And then once you
I'll second.
agree,
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we can, as a condition, I'll let somebody else do it.
All right, I'll move that the application of Lake Father, Lake Son LLC, Landscaping LLC, be approved contingent upon the additional, or the submittal of additional information as discussed, which would include statements regarding that the storage and management of de-icing materials publication by New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services be adhered to, that the covered area be kept, the covered storage area be kept dry, or the interior of the covered storage area be kept dry by whatever means necessary. That the a statement that the Department of Environmental Services has been made aware of the location of the salt storage with respect to the vicinity of the wetlands. That a statement that the slope of the land in the area is such that contours are not needed, and that there is a gentle slope from the salt shed to the wetland area. And finally, that what's the tent one? I didn't understand that. Get a tent
Permit?
That they get a
Tent
approval of a tent application to the code enforcement officer.
that there be submitted an approval of, Sharon, you can go ahead and get that. And that this all be accomplished and submitted within, do we give a date or a period of time?
Just in a period of time.
30-day calendar date, 30 calendar day period.
Is that gonna be before, we do it 30 days before our next meeting?
Yes,
We do.
it's 31 days.
Okay.
Amen.
Repeat that.
No. And I don't recall if there was anything else we had to add to it, but there is, please
No, I
chime in.
think you did a nice job. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I guess if he meets all these conditions, we can sign off and approve it. We don't have to wait the whole 30 days.
That's right.
Right. Okay. Any further discussion?
Well, what you're really doing is you're approving it.
You're right, with a
And-
condition.
And then with those conditions, as long as he meets them within the 30 days, you're not gonna talk, you won't review this again.
Right.
The only way it would come back to the board is if Chris or Sharon said he didn't
Right.
do this within the period.
All right, so we're
That's
handing
all.
this over to Chris or Sharon now.
That's right.
But does that allow him to start the project now? Yes, okay.
As soon
You're approving it,
as soon as it
Okay.
gets signed off.
yeah,
Okay.
he's gotta get the 10th application approved, and then he's good to
Okay.
go.
And I guess you and I can review, submit all the stuff and we'll sign it. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you. As soon as you get the stuff in, we'll look at it and sign off.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
So we can start pouring.
Thanks, Shannon.
Okay, next on the agenda is a site plan review application for the Waterville Company for sledding and ice skating at Waterville Valley Golf Course. No, we're not gonna make the same mistake. The application is complete. You get a little rusty between these applications, so don't come in every month.
Maybe we should come more often?
Make us earn our keep.
Can I put some of this stuff up on the board?
Yeah,
they help.
that'd be great.
Is it complete?
I think the information can be obtained from what has
Hold on,
been
Bill,
presented. It's not on the phone that I,
Can put on that?
Do you want to?
No, he's gonna, oh,
There's a board there.
it's kind of a collection of, old plans that are referred to in the application, so if you follow through, you can get to where you're going. But there's nothing on the plan that says site plan. See, the titles are different jobs. So I guess it depends on how much you stick with, you know, considering what the,
Just the way I look at it, is completely, there's enough information here for private. So if we want something changed, that would be part of the deliberation. I mean, that's been my spin on it, that's the way I understood it. Because if we try to get everything for the application,
well, I think I would say that the information is adequate.
Anybody else look at it? Anybody else? Did you consider it complete enough?
I did.
I looked at it, I think it's complete. Do I have a motion to accept the completed application?
Do I have to recuse myself from this? Because I'm gonna buy it.
Yes.
Okay.
Good point.
Yeah, I wonder if I could too.
Oh, I guess I might do
I think Nancy and Cheryl are the two abutters.
I got a notification.
Really?
You got a note?
Oh, yeah. that's-
Oh, you're across the street.
Yeah, that's right.
Hi, Terry. Well, but remember, recusal is really at the discretion of the board, okay? And recusal technically is supposed to be because of fiduciary benefit from, you know, if there's something that's either gonna benefit or not benefit your property. So, I mean, you can keep it the cleanest by recusing yourself if you are in a butter and got a notice, or the board could say that's not, there's not an issue there. But that's really up to the board.
Exactly.
Well, I'm a little concerned that we're gonna lose too many board members.
Oh, I'm
Well-
not, Nancy's okay.
Just because I got the golf course.
You didn't get a notice,
Well, one Valley Place got a notice.
Yeah, I can see
Oh.
you're way up the other.
Oh, one ballot, that's what you're,
Yeah.
okay,
It's
I'm
one
sorry.
of three.
Well, I'm gonna, as I say, I'm a little concerned about losing too many board members, because we're down a couple anyway. If it's okay with Bill, these board members will not recuse themselves in this case.
That's fine with me.
It's okay with you?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with
I think as long as you agree. Because that's, thank you.
And I just think that should be in the minutes
Yeah.
too, that the board and the applicant were okay
Yeah.
with the members hearing the
Remain
case.
seated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me run through this, Ray, so everybody understands it?
Oh, do you need a vote on that?
We were talking about accepting it, that you need the acceptance before the presentation.
Yeah, I was in track. Okay.
No, we didn't.
Do I have a motion to accept the application as complete?
I make a motion to accept the applicant as complete. The application is complete.
Have a second? All in favor? Okay. So it's complete, and now open a public hearing.
Thanks, Ray. Let me run through some of the stuff that we've submitted for this. The Waterville Company, as you all know, I think owns the golf course, including the land that we're proposing for Tubing Hill and the golf clubhouse that we're proposing to keep open in the winter. We're gonna, we have an agreement to lease all of these facilities to the ski area, and they will be the operators of the Tubing Hill operation. We're doing that for a bunch of reasons. One, they've got the ski patrol folks, and you need some supervision over there. They've got the insurance for this type of operation. They've got the grooming equipment, and just they're the logical and knowledgeable operator of this operation. The property that we're talking about, I submitted a copy of the town tax map because that really showed it better than anything else. This whole property here that's dark is the Waterville Golf Course with the golf clubhouse down here. And the property we're talking about is located right adjacent between the fifth hole and the Sundin property. Does everybody understand where the property is? This is a different location than when we came in and talked before. We spent a lot of time looking at the old location with the old Criterion Trail that actually comes down over here and over here. And they both go through wetlands. They've got big rocks in them. According to wetlands regulations, you cannot remove those rocks from the wetlands. There are a lot of trees to come out, which we were willing to do, but we couldn't affect the fall line and create any lanes. And as we looked around, we found this large piece of land that's shown on these three maps that's got a great slope to it. If you come down the fifth hole, this is an aerial photograph of this. If you come down the fifth hole, here's the fifth green. Here's the cart path that comes down out onto the sixth fairway. This is the back tee for the sixth fairway that runs up here. The gazebo is here. This little dark patch here is the Goodrich Heather. Does everybody understand where that parcel, the parcel of land is? And it's a very interesting piece of land in that there's a ridge that runs down here towards the cart path, and there's actually about 40 feet of elevation between here and the golf course. The contours are smooth and consistent. The only wetlands is over here in the corner, which we're not going to touch. And then the run out goes right out across the golf course. And as we looked at it, we said this piece of land is really perfect. So what we would propose to do is the tree line runs here. This is the existing tree line. This is the proposed tree line that we would cut out. It's approximately 150 or 60 feet in both ways, so it's a little less than an acre. It's got some big timber on it. It's going to take 5 to 8 days to cut that out. We're leaving an area up here so we can bring snow machines and tubes and any other equipment up the hill this way. After it is cut, it'll be stumped and rough graded, seeded with a state slope blend grass seed with a lot of winter rye in it, because we'd really like to get some growth there before the ground freezes if possible. And it would all be mulched to protect erosion. We take out these two trees here and these trees here so you could come across the golf course with a tubing operation. It would be fenced, just like you approved for the ski jump at or similar to the way you approved the ski jump down at the BBTS hill, which would be plastic control fencing that you see at the ski area all the time, put across the top and the bottom every night when they're done operating and taken down when they open up the operation in the afternoons. The clubhouse will be kept open during the winter to serve food and beverages to both tubers and cross-country skiers. Chris can speak to the kinds of food they want to operate now. We would propose to add no additional parking. I submitted the parking plans that were previously approved for the golf maintenance building and for the golf clubhouse as existing parking places that we would plow and make available. But we'd sure like to think that everybody could walk over here at night when this thing is in operation. some of the golf course parking, as you know, is lost in the wintertime because the cross-country trails go across the parking that's immediately adjacent to Valley Road. The lighting of the hill is proposed to be a tower light, and they brought down today one of the tower lights that's out here. It would run on a generator. That generator is, as the person who supplied the generator says, it's quiet as a church house mouse. But it is quiet, and I don't think that the generator will cause any noise problems whatsoever. The tower lights will be set up so that they comply with the lighting ordinance. I don't think we know exactly how they're gonna work until we see them out there on snow, and there might be some adjustments that are required. But that's the essence of the proposal. We submitted maps that show the entire parcel of land which was required, contours, wetlands, fencing, lighting. Any operational questions can be answered by the guys here from Kristen and the guys from the mountain.
Where would the lights be located? Where would the lights be located, and where would the generator be located?
The generator and the light is one unit, and at this point in time, correct me if I'm wrong, but we put this thing up last night and ran the thing up at the mountain. We believe it would probably go in this corner right down here, because that offers the most, it'll have the least impact on this house here because of the trees that come out this way. And it's heavily wooded all the way around this.
Yeah.
What was the reason you didn't just run an underground line from the clubhouse out to that area for the light?
Two reasons. One is expense, and two is until we actually do it, we don't know what the requirements are really gonna be for lighting.
And if I could,
Yeah.
impact. I mean, the less ground we can tear up, the better, you know. So it's just, by having a generator with this mast, it makes it mobile. So if, you know, we put it up, and again, as Bill said, we plan to put it on the bottom, facing up, keep the brightness away from the town, and really use the reflectivity off the hill to really help light the area. If something is different, or we want to move it, we can move it either 10 feet to the left or right, or 100 feet back, or 100 feet up. So it gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of, instead of putting in permanent structures.
So the enclosure is movable as well as the light, then talked about closing it for sound, did you?
This generator, we don't anticipate needing an enclosure for sound.
Is there a decibel rating or something like that?
It's very quiet, and we brought it down so we can run it, so you can listen to it.
It's been running since, it's been
It's
running now.
It's 50 feet away, and it's running now. I believe I can get the exact number. I want to say it's rated for under 65 decibels.
Probably would be a good idea to have that, so that if some sort of measurement that could be verified or checked enough at some point. Yeah.
Okay. Bill, the last time you came in, my memory is right, hours of operation were 4 to 7?
Well, we were talking about late afternoon and evenings. Chris can talk directly at the hours they anticipate running.
No, I think we'd probably anticipate running it later than that. Something well into the nighttime hours. Just again, the whole idea is to try to create some evening activity. Kind of, again, not to go too deep into it, but it's really trying to create a charming energy center for the town with potentially bonfire and maybe some ice skating. You have the tubing out there, the food and beverage. You have the sleigh rides going by. You have the cross country. It's just kind of another amenity to the town, with kind of trying to maintain as minimal of an impact as possible.
But is it like 10 o'clock-ish or midnight-ish?
I think it's safe to say we'd be well done by 10. Without a doubt.
Would there be any additional lights, or just that one light on the corner?
We anticipate running with just the one light right now.
Because that's quite a ways to walk at night to get to the hill. So you would think that you would need some lighting for the
pathway.
For the pathway.
Right now the lighting on the parking lot does a pretty decent job. So in terms of having the folks around the general vicinity of the clubhouse, we think that'll provide enough lighting there. Again, we want it safe but not overly bright. If we have to put in a second set of lights that would light a pathway, we can do that. But again, right now we're trying to keep it as minimal of an impact as possible. safety above all, and beyond that, charm, frankly. Nobody wants bright lights. That would just be not good for anybody.
Yeah, because right now, there's no lighting over at the additional parking place, right? And
There's a light on the corner of,
The street.
Boulder Path Road, a regular street light.
Now, would people bring their own tubes, or?
No, we supply the
You're
tubes, we
gonna
supply everything.
Okay, so
Yeah.
people could walk directly across the golf course
Absolutely.
from the park, from that golf maintenance shed.
So they would rent the tubes at the hill.
At the hill, yeah, we
Okay.
provide everything, so you can, ease of use. The other thing, just to kind of complement this, and obviously there's a variety of different aspects to this, but we are anticipating also, for the first time, running buses at night. The primary hours, going back to the hours in the days, we're really looking just at Friday, Saturday, Sunday operations. Sunday operations would be done in the 4 or 5 o'clock range. There's no reason to run late at Sunday. The only nighttime hours would be typically Friday, Saturday night, and holidays. So on a typical weeknight, we wouldn't be running it. But to complement that, we want to try to find an expanded bus schedule as well to, again, just provide service to the town, to Town Square, to this location.
Where you store the tubes and collect the monies and have an attendant, are you gonna have some kind of a temporary facility?
We'll be running everything out of the operations will be run out of the clubhouse.
Oh.
So you come into the clubhouse to the desk as it is now, you can buy your ticket there, you can get your food and beverages there.
So there'll be no structure or tent structure or whatever?
For the tubes, we'll probably need a secondary temporary structure to store the tubes. There are a lot of tubes that we're anticipating close to 100, for those few days when we get really full up. The max capacity of we anticipate being able to have enough room for 4 nice wide safe lanes. The maximum capacity in any given hour would be approximately 70 to 80 people. We don't see it going anywhere.
This is currently a winter facility, and in the winter, the noise isn't quite as much of an issue as the summer. Even though noise reflects off on that slope right there, goes right across the golf course, and it can be heard valley-wide, anything that goes on over there. Are you anticipating this expanding into a summer event, putting the?
Not right now. Right now, again, I think it's important just to get up and running and see how it's accepted by folks. So right now, we're just thinking winter. If we want to expand to summer, that's been talked about, but right now, no plans for that. That requires a lot of significant dollars. If you look at something like what they did with BBTS and the Neverclass, those facilities can be incredibly exciting and a great amenity for a resort. But right now, that's not enough.
So people are gonna be walking to the hill and then walking up the hill, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So there's not gonna be any form of transportation for the,
Not for people. There will be a snow machine on site for a couple of reasons. One, just safety and first aid response. If somebody got in an accident, we can get them out of there quickly. We may also use it just to bring the tubes up. But people.
so there's gonna be a snowmobile going up and down the hill?
Yes.
Okay. And
From time to time.
where's the storage for the tubes gonna be? Are you planning on having that at the top, or?
Right now, it's anticipated that we would have it out by the gazebo area. Is that right, Bill? That's it. Out by the gazebo area. We're hoping not to have to clear any additional trees for that. But again, it would just be a temporary structure that the tubes stay in nice and locked up at night.
Will there be snowmaking?
No, not anticipated. So when we generate our models and everything, this is when the natural snow hits. That's when we would start operations. If it snows in December 1st, we'd love to get up and running right on December 1st. If we don't get snow in the valley till, God forbid, January 1st, then that's when it would run. Prior to natural snow hitting the valley and this being operational, we probably still would run, as many of you know, we do have tubing up at the mountains a couple days a week. We don't run it too much in December, Keith, correct? I think we don't even start till Christmas break. Yeah, Christmas break. So we'd continue to run that operation. And again, that operation's fine, but it's hokey, for lack of a better word. It's very expensive for us to run. It's a hassle for people to get all the way back up to the mountain at night. It's not very easy for folks to do that. They have to get in their car to do it. There's no real driver there. So while we've had some success with it, it is a kind of a tubing of last resort, if you will, whereas this provides a little more of an amenity for the actual town. And again, the whole hope is that we're generating a little more of an atmosphere for the town, helping the businesses in town, and getting people looking at the town center during the winter season.
Is this gonna be part of the winter unlimited package when,
No.
No, right now, no.
I'm a little concerned that if it doesn't work, let's say it doesn't pan out, doesn't get used the way you really want it to be, and it's not successful, that we're gonna have this cleared area
Mhm.
on the golf course. And I have a problem with that.
Right.
You know, I can understand that because it's going from a wooded area to an open area. But it's really no different than the old Snows Mountain trail that came down, or the trail, or the open area at the bottom of Cascade Ridge. It was also a trail. And I think those areas became endeared to the town. I mean, I heard that when we built the roads in Cascade Ridge, and we went through that when, you know, BBTS bought the property. And I grew up in a New England town that had a little slope no bigger than this that was in the middle of town and cleared, that was used for skiing and sliding and all the other stuff. And I think that in the long run, this open area will be viewed no different than the Snows Mountain trails were.
And just to add to that, when we first constructed, obviously we're under a bit of a time crunch. We're going to mulch it, try to put some grasses down just to hold it at least for erosion. One of the ideas that we've thrown out there, because in the summer months, even in the summer when it's not open, it will be an open space. Again, we have kind of a wildflower planting plan that we've kind of anticipated. So at a minimum, you know, yeah, we can have a grassy hill, or we can have a hill full of wildflowers or something. We thought that'd be kind of nice, but yeah, we don't want it to have this big open, like abandoned space, anything like that. So.
Certainly if it moved into the summer venue, it would be just as lovely as the ski jump that's over there right now. I don't know, that doesn't look very good. So it's an interesting.
Yeah, but again, we're not anticipating that now. That would be, again, that would be a whole different, to your point, the aesthetics of that, the operations of that. You know, and even the location, whether that would be, you know, would we extend the location and where we would go. When you look at a year-round tubing runs, they're very different than what we're proposing here. This is really just natural terrain, natural soil.
Well, in the summertime, when the golf course is in operation, you really can't come across the golf course.
That's right. That's right. So that's why in the summertime.
In the evening.
Yeah. Yeah, probably would make sense. I mean, the real benefit is, I've seen most people in this room play golf. The slicing is terrible, so you can now retrieve your ball. So that's one of the real drivers here.
I want dibs on all the balls. It's gonna be buckets and buckets full, even though it's nowhere near where the ball should be.
There's an interesting aside, there are lots of golf balls up there now,
Oh.
and some kind of a rodent tries to eat them. I don't know if they think they're eggs or what they are, but all of the golf balls up there, unless you get it there right after Ray has played, they've all been chewed up.
Really?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
How far into the golf course do you anticipate the tubes to go?
Tubes would run about 50 feet out.
Oh, they're gonna go further than that. I bet you they go all the way out here. I bet you in some conditions, they may go all the way to that fescue, built-up area that is on the other, that's right by the second tee.
Wow.
As we find, as Keith can attest to up at the mountain, we find when the first tubes go down at night, you know, everything's pretty mellow. As the other tube, as it gets packed down a little bit towards the night, it does get pretty slick and pretty fast. Very fun. It's terrific.
Which trees on the golf course will you cut?
The trees that are in front of the 6th tee, and the trees that are over by the second tee.
So how are you gonna delineate the fairways at that point in the summer months?
How you what?
Delineate your tees in fairways.
These trees were never planted to delineate the fairways.
Okay.
They were put in for safety reasons, and we frankly don't like really big fir trees on the golf course. And we were gonna start thinning these out here, and we're gonna start thinning out the trees over by the ninth tee also. And so as it turns out, you know, this won't affect safety.
It looks like you're far enough away from the heather garden not to disturb that, 'cause it's a historic site. Is there a stone wall that goes down along?
There is a stone wall that runs all the way
Yeah,
along this
that's what I
thing.
thought. What would happen to the stone wall?
We'll remove it. Bring them over to Windsor Hill and you could build a nice stone wall.
That's kind of. Stone wall's kind of overbuilt. Because actually there's a little berm there. I guess you'd have to take that berm down too, don't you? Where the stone wall is? Seems like that's.
No, it's pretty smooth. We're gonna grade that. Our construction schedule is to start cutting trees next Tuesday. That'll take 5 to 8 days, and then come in with an excavator and take out all of the stumps and the rocks. They all get hauled off and rough grade it with an excavator, which isn't gonna take very much. The grades there are really
Yeah.
very favorable, and then get it seeded and mulched as quickly as possible.
Because I know that there's like a berm here that the stone wall sits on, because you climb up and over, because I've gone looking for my ball. I'm familiar with those contours.
Is there gonna be any pathway or anything to help the people go up the hill, or?
Yes, it's anticipated that folks would kind of come up the side here, on the existing
Go on
path,
the path?
and then they kind of come right around the top edge here. And again, this kind of provides the easiest, smoothest access. Walking
So
up the
you'll
hill
have
is
to have
not
lighting
ideal.
up in
I'm sorry?
that, you'll have to have lighting up in that vicinity if they're gonna be walking up the hill.
Well, again, if the light's down here pushing up,
Okay,
it should be pretty good.
okay.
I mean, the key with us with the lighting is again keeping it down.
Mhm.
So we have a light that can mast. I mean, we could take this light up to 30 feet high, and then actually mast it down,
Mhm.
possibly. Because it provides a 360-degree rotation, a lot of flexibility. So not only will we have the flexibility with where we locate the lights, but also how high it goes, how they're positioned. You can even, if it's a 4-bulb system, you could even reduce it down to 2 bulbs. If we really had to, we could bring in for safety, if we wanted to bring in a secondary smaller lighting system, we could do that for the pathway. Right now, again, when we tested it last night, it looked like that technically these things are rated to cover 7 acres. Okay, we wanted to cover about 1.5. So once we because of the smooth contours here, that actually allows for a very smooth transition of the light up to the tree level, but not over. So again, it's anticipated that one should be more than enough, but again, allowing us that, giving ourselves the flexibility will just allows us to adjust.
So, Mark, will this portable lighting unit comply with the lighting breadth?
Yeah, that's what we're gonna look at. That's why they're looking at angling it down.
And what kind of structure is gonna contain the tubes when they're not in use?
There's a couple options. One would be, one idea is very similar to what David was proposing earlier, a smaller version of that. It's a kind of a temporary aluminum structure. We could also just rent what they call a pod, basically, a storage pod, just for a couple months. That would just sit
I
on
don't
the
wanna
ground.
look at a storage pod.
Well, again, it would probably be placed, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, kind of behind the trees and out of the way. It wouldn't just be out there by any means. No, it would be, unless you were back in this area, you really wouldn't see it. The whole idea is to tuck it away. We've even looked at the idea of putting it in the trees if we really have to. So
Would it be removed in the summertime?
yes.
Just another thing for my ball to hit. I noticed that you're clearing all the way up above the ridge line. The ridge line is here. I'm not sure why you're going above the ridge line.
You got to go just above it again, just to give the participants a little place to walk before they kind of take a little left-hand turn and
go
a little staging area on top.
There's also not a lot of trees up there, Ray. There's an old trail that ran right up this ridge, who knows, years ago. So the actual top of this ridge doesn't have a lot of trees on it. So by the time you go up and cut the trees enough so you got a flat spot to start the tubing, the tree line, for all intents and purposes, goes to just where it starts to fall on the backside of that ridge.
Because it definitely is a ridge, there's not much flat spot up there.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I hadn't been up there for years. It was kind of like, oh my God, look at this hill, it's perfect.
So you really wouldn't be changing any, when you mentioned you were gonna be regrading, you're not gonna change any of these basic contours? Just
Not
serve-
to
No,
any,
just
no,
serve
not,
us
not
well.
so it
Trying
would
to keep
change
it
its
right back
life.
to its natural contour.
Now what about the ice skating? How would that be?
Currently where the, the pond, the little pond, what do you
The
call it?
irrigation.
The irrigation pond, which is right adjacent to the clubhouse. One idea would be to shovel that off and just have it as an open skating area, free. For those, I mean, we're not gonna rent skates or anything like that.
I was
but,
gonna ask, no
No.
skates, okay.
we're not gonna rent any, but if folks would like to bring them, we're happy to shovel it and again,
Do
do
you
it.
drive the Zamboni over or no?
No, probably no Zamboni,
Maybe
just
rough
some shoveling and some hand blowing and shoveling just to get it clear.
New England style skating.
Yes, and
They can
but
sprinkle
that's really
water
part of
on
it. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
folks, as you know, come up and say, "Hey, that must be a great Corcoran's Pond must be great to skate on." No, you can't do that. But to actually provide a little New England style skating
That'd be- yeah,
would be
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Would be nice.
What would the access be down to the ice? Because right now, the whole periphery, the whole margin is riprap. It'd be hard to walk down those rocks. Well, I guess in the winter.
Well, in the winter, if it's covered with snow, we'd
Yeah.
probably lay something out. If we had to, we talked about we could even kind of what we do at the mountain. We actually lay carpet down. You know, we just roll some
Oh,
carpet
okay.
out just to provide a little
Yeah.
some more secure footing. But again, that would all be kind of temporary and just providing a little pathway up there.
Would you use the porch as well as the interior of the clubhouse?
Potentially, that was. I gotta be honest, I don't know. You mean the back screen porch?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would really, I think we'd wanna see just how cold it truly is out there. I think we'd try to use it, and if it got some use, then by all means, I think could be a very charming place to sit out there and either, it provides a great opportunity to watch your kids, if you wanna have a glass of wine or hot chocolate or something and watch your kids.
Bill, you know that stone, all those stones, you could build a nice fireplace off that screen porch.
It could be a town project, kind of like the Stone Tower.
There you go.
Oh, gosh.
Kentland's Tower.
No more stones.
Campman's Fire Pit.
One
There you
big
go.
fire.
There you go. We did talk about the idea of bringing in a temporary fire pit, again, more for the ambiance and charm. You know, we can sell s'mores kits or marshmallows or something.
That'd be fun, like
Would
a
that-
nestle look.
Would that be more towards the pond area than the slope?
Yes, that would be more towards the kind of off the park, kind of between the parking lot and the pond.
We've looked at two areas.
Yeah.
When you weren't there, we
Yes.
looked at two
Oh,
different
okay.
areas. The two areas that were looked at was, just off the ninth green, towards the clubhouse, there's an area there that would work, or directly across the pond in front of the first tee. Going in a lineal direction towards this tubing thing. One of those two areas probably makes the most sense. That's all right with you.
No, absolutely.
Well, Terry mentioned the noise, and we would anticipate that it would be all happy children laughing, and there would be no crying allowed.
I don't accept crying at my same resort. I don't know.
And all the drunks would be happy drunks, right?
Absolutely.
Is there any other kind?
Is it a diesel generator that runs that?
I believe it is diesel, yeah, it's a
Is that
diesel.
what I'm hearing out there at the moment, that kind of hum in the background?
That hum.
Is that
I
what-
thought that was
Maybe I'm not-
I thought that was a choir
Yeah.
myself, it sounded so sweet.
I can't hear it, I could hear the
That is it,
compactor
yeah.
truck when it was
Where-
down there, but it's down, I'm
Where
not
do
sure
you
you
put
can see it through the trees, but I think if you go out right on the porch, you can see it. It's down at the end of the.
I know when you're working on something and there's a generator going, you don't listen to it anymore after an hour. And so these things just don't stand out to some people, but I'm telling you, these generators in town, when they go on, when the power goes out, you can hear them all over town.
Sure.
They're very loud and they're very irritating. And I'm concerned about the noise that generator is going to.
Go listen to it. It's,
Well, I know, but in the evening, you know, the still night hours and it reflects off that hill right across that, you can hear people partying up there like they're just right next door. It's like going across a lake. That sound does carry. It carries quite heavily.
Another purpose for the rocks, containment area.
I'm concerned about that noise, and I understand what you're saying. You don't know where the light is best, so you want to be able to move it around and so forth. But it would be nice if once it's established where the light's going to be, if it could be non-generator run lighting. And I'm also concerned about, although I think it's a good idea, I think that skating is a good idea. I think the whole idea of having something, activity for the younger people in town like that is nice. And a winter slope, I can see, and it wouldn't be too much of a problem. If that reverts to a summer slope, like what's happening over there at the academy, that's going to be an eyesore right in the middle of that banking, where all that walking along Boulder Pass Road where the benches are, you know, just the aesthetics of the area. When people come in and they, half the thing about Waterville Valley is the aesthetics. And that is going to be a real stab in the eye right there. So I'd be concerned that you somehow limit, I don't think you can do that. I don't think we can limit you from what you're going to be doing in the future. But I would seriously think about limiting, you know, if there's approval for this in the wintertime, that you limit it so that it doesn't develop into something in the summertime if it's possible.
I can tell you the agreement between the ski resort and WCI is just a 6-month lease agreement. So right now, I don't even have, I'd have to get permission from him if we even wanted to propose something.
He would have to come back to the planning board.
I know, but once it's established,
Yeah, no,
once it's there,
yeah.
it's a whole different story. I mean, the clearing of the trees, I agree with Bill. You know, sometimes you look at the slopes up there in Tecumseh, it's kind of pleasant in a way. But when you look at the academy, that's not at all pleasant. You know, it's black and white and dirty and ugly and just a real eyesore. Now, fortunately, up at that end, you don't see that very much. But this is right in the middle of that long, wide open stretch. It's visible almost from everywhere. Once you, from coming from Town Square, right all the way up Boulder Pass Road.
Well, I can tell you, we would not, there's no, that's not proposed for this area. And to your point, I wouldn't put it here. I mean, if we were gonna do that, you probably want a longer run. You do want it tucked away. Like you said, it's an eyesore. I mean, I live here too, so it's an eyesore for us
Yeah.
too. So, and you wouldn't have the run out. You'd be drastically affecting the golf course, which is a whole different can of worms.
And as far as the generator for the light, I guess you said it was one unit, right? The lights are on top of it. It's like they use for construction at night. It's got the tower on and the lights and all that. So there really isn't any way you can enclose that with some sort of a muffler type unit that focuses the sound perhaps up the hill.
Terry, I gotta tell you, my biggest concern when we started looking at this was the sound, and we ran this thing last night up at the mountain, against the mountain, and it really is not loud, and I appreciate the fact that it's, you know, set up so it's going to come across the golf course, but that generator is 20% of the size of the generator that we used for my daughter's wedding at the wedding site down on the bottom of the pond. And it had no impact on the wedding ceremony, to say nothing about across the pond at the town square. And there've been generators down there before whenever people have put up tents for receptions, and they've always been a generator. Has anybody ever heard one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terry has.
When you walk in the evening, you can hear it across there. And I can't imagine the wedding bells were being set with the generator going, and it didn't somehow. I understand the party, maybe the generator wasn't a problem, but during
It
the
wasn't
ceremony.
alcohol being served.
But you know, I understand what you're saying, and I mean, just know, having experienced it in the evening, sitting out there, and when one of those things goes on, and they don't have to be anywhere near you, they really do sound loud. They echo off the buildings, and it's.
You're gonna have noise of the crowd anyway that's there.
Well, that's a different noise.
You know?
It's a different noise. When someone's mowing, someone stays late, mows the lawn over there on the golf course over by the clubhouse, boy, you can hear that more. along the way. So I don't know if, like you say, you only have a 6 months agreement. But if the approval could somehow be contingent upon, once the location of the light has been established, that you have some sort of a permanent non-generator lighting source.
I'm trying to think, how would we do that? I mean, yeah, we could have to put pedestals out there, and fixed wire. Are you talking about like during the season?
I would think that,
I mean, once we get up and
let's-
running, I can't.
let's assume that you go through a season, and throughout that season, you relocate the light to the best location. And then you determine, okay, this is the location we're going to have it. That the following season, or before the following season, some sort of underground electrical line be run to that location, and the lights be run from a permanent source, like say the clubhouse.
It's a pretty substantial ask. And the only reason I'm kind of winging this in my head, you're going to need a pretty substantial power source going out there, without a doubt. Hundreds of feet of copper line. You're going to tear that golf course right up. You're going to have to cross the irrigation system, go around the pond, around the greens.
And Terry, every 400 feet you need a box. You would need, you would either have to do like the line, the electrical line that runs along the water line out to the new well. Every 400 feet, there has to be a vault. And that vault is either going to be above ground or it's going to be below ground. If it's below ground, it's a 4x4 or 5x5 concrete vault that has to be dug into the ground.
Even for a secondary line?
Yeah, yeah. Because they need to be able to maintain that line, and they don't go beyond 400 feet. So if this is co-op owned, that's a mandatory thing. And then you're either going to have those big green boxes with the above ground, and that's going to minimize the impact on the amount of digging that you have, or you're going to have a subterranean vault. And
Well, are there casements that can, I mean, once the position for the light is found, are there bafflers that can be put around the base once it's known? And then you
Potentially.
have the generator muffled and no lines on
Is this an air cooled or liquid cooled? Do you know?
Liquid cool.
Okay, it's liquid cooled. So because it's liquid cooled, that gives us a little flexibility in kind of building, for lack of a term, a doghouse around it.
Yeah.
Again,
I mean,
that's
noises.
definitely a
Yeah.
possibility.
You guys are dreaming.
I mean, I hear the hum too, but it's hard to conceptualize what it's going to be like in the winter and the snow and with it's hard to know. But you know, to Bill's point, all those generators running for weddings and stuff haven't interfered, except for maybe the quiet, peaceful evening walks.
Jerry, run the extension cord from your house.
You guys do have the specs, right? If you can submit them, just so we know what the decibel level is.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great, just so-
Yeah, we could send those over. Sure.
We can be comfortable with whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And the other thing, Terry, I think we've got to look at, this is their first winter doing this, we're not gonna know how it's going to be received. And I would hate to see a permanent light structure there if it didn't succeed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd like,
Well, I'm not suggesting that we do it the first season, but once it's been established,
We were
to
just,
have a permanent facility with a temporary lighting setup.
we were just talking, is it even possible to do this with solar or some sort of alternative?
We looked at that real extensively with solar. You know, there's a couple aspects to that. You need a lot of solar lights, a lot. It's winter. You got to maintain those panels. We're trying to keep this in a treed area, so we actually don't maximize our solar usage. If it was the summer, I think it'd be a whole different story. And based on the size of the panels you need for the amount of light that we're looking for, It got
And the number of hours you're now gonna be open.
yeah, it got so cost prohibitive, it kind of was gonna tank the whole project. When we went out, we talked to all the other tubing runs, not all, but about 4 or 5 different ones, Ben Wilcox over at Cranmore or whatever it was, and said, okay, you guys have done this before, here's what I'm thinking. Without a doubt, everyone came back and said, you need real lights. I mean, you do need some brightness here. You can control it and have it directed and aimed to control it, but in terms of what's on that hill for safety purposes, for comfort and use of the guest, you actually need something. I mean, if you've ever been to some of those other tubing runs, it's like Sunday at noontime. They just light up those places crazy with up to a dozen of these units sometimes. We're trying to get away with one, to be honest. So that would have been awesome to do it solar, because that
Kind of
just
speaks to the brand of the valley,
Exactly.
that we're nature
Yeah.
and all that.
yeah. Pete Adams helped us a lot trying to design that plan, and we went out and looked at a bunch of them, and we came to the conclusion with LEDs, low energy stuff. You needed about 45 of these things pinned up on the trees, spread everywhere. Got a little.
That's very
The plan was getting a little out of control, and we finally said we just can't do it. And again, it's not every night. It's like you said, it's 2 nights. Probably running the generator and the lights from 3:30. In the real dead of on December 21st, probably 3:30 till my guess is 9ish, something like that.
So
Maybe
you,
as late as 10, just for cleanup after it's closed down.
you wouldn't run it, Chris, through the vacation week?
I'm sorry, no, we would.
Okay.
Through the holiday weekends and holiday weeks. That's what we're
Okay.
looking for here.
Will there be snow fences on the sides of the slope coming down, keeping people out of the trees?
Yes. So safety fence.
Safety
Yes.
fence.
Yeah. Just I'm sorry. We come right down the side here and down the side here. We anticipate grading out 4 lane. I'm sorry, not grading on the surface, grading into the snow, so plowing essentially 4 lanes.
How late would the buses run? Until 9 or 10?
Yeah, I think so.
Are you kind of taking that and running with it, or because that was discussed?
Yeah, we've been
Our
talking, and
committee
I've
meeting will talk about it later.
I've been owing Wendy a budget on the bus system for.
Unless if
for
you
a
want to
few
run with
weeks.
it, and then I'm.
No, yes, I think probably till about 9 o'clock. Probably the last bus would probably shuttle people out of there at 9 o'clock.
Unless you stayed open till 10.
Unless we stayed open, until
Yeah.
closing. I guess we would just say till closing.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I think it sounds like a great idea.
I think we need it.
I think it's a good idea, but I have some problems with the lighting, with snowmobile usage. I really don't like the looks of the fencing that's gonna have to go up. And I know it's necessary, but it's very unattractive.
I'm sorry, the fencing you're referring to? would
Well,
be
the snow fencing
on the sides?
on the sides.
Like the orange?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd probably go with green.
Oh,
Yeah, we'd probably try to get some green fencing that blends right in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, I hate that orange.
Yeah, it's really
Down.
cheesy looking.
We'd probably, again, because we have the trees on the side, we'd get something that tried to blend right in.
Mhm.
But if I could, but at night, the safety fencing at night that blocks off the top and bottom, that would probably be orange. And again, that's
Yeah.
more nighttime
Yeah,
fencing,
yeah.
but that's, so people really need to see that,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Yep.
There's nothing we can do about that.
I really like the idea of the skating on the pond, hopefully that'll go off, and a fire pit in the vicinity or something. I think it'll attract vacationists for sure.
Any other questions? I'll close the public hearing. If there's no more questions, I'll close the public hearing. And I'll start the resolution. Sounds like most of the board thinks it's a good idea.
You do have a member of the public here. You do have a member of the public, Lisa.
Did you ask
So
Lisa?
make sure that
Way
she
up there,
has a
but it
chance
Yeah,
to
I
speak.
closed the public hearing.
Yeah, but did you ask Lisa?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Maybe we should
Lisa, did you have any comments?
Not really, I think I'm far enough, except for snowmobiles, I don't know how often they're on snowmobiles.
That's a
Because
question.
you
But how often, oh, sorry, how often
can
do we
hear
run?
them, because you can hear those.
They would be bringing tubes up
Okay.
a couple times an hour. They would just run the tubes up the hill. They kind of, they hitch all the tubes onto the bottom, they run them up, we have roughly 100 tubes.
Okay.
The tubes come down and then we run them
But
back.
it's just a movie set.
That's a good idea.
Just Friday and Saturday, yeah, oh, I'm sorry, and Sunday afternoon, yeah, just on the weekend.
I had a concern, which is not that it's not gonna be popular, but that it will be. And that, but that people aren't going to think like Bill, and they're gonna all wanna drive and park in the golf course parking lot, and it'll be full. And then they're gonna start parking up the road past the booths, and I'm not gonna be able to get home. So, how are we gonna manage that?
Call the town, have them tow the cars and illegally parked.
But, you know, like, part of me hates to do that, because I don't wanna make tourists unhappy either. Like, is there gonna be any way to kinda pre-manage that, maybe some signage up there, or something that says, you know, please don't park on the road, you're gonna get towed, so that I don't have to call and they won't park there?
Or maybe during holiday weeks, have a staff person outside directing, you know.
And yeah, I guess that's what we're hoping, that, so that we don't, because we don't wanna make people, we don't wanna get people towed, and we don't wanna make them unhappy, but we don't want them parking there either.
So I guess, if I could, Bill, I think what we do is we put some additional signage out there, and again, try to direct people to the overflow parking over at the storage shed facility. And again, I think signage and information is the best thing you can do to mitigate that. And again, with the storage facility, your storage shed, I don't know if that's what we're calling it. There should be a decent amount over there.
And that signage will all be temporary, right, come down after
Just
the
temporary
season.
signage, yeah.
But as we promote the thing, it'd be really nice to promote it and say, very limited parking.
Yeah.
Walk over and enjoy this outdoor venue. That's what we really want people to do. But that doesn't mean the problem will go away, but.
Yeah, but please promote it that way, you know what I mean?
We will encourage them to park at town square
Very
and
specific.
take a
Instead
sleigh
of having
ride
stops.
over to the tubing, and then they can get off on the sleigh and go.
That would be fantastic.
That's a good idea.
But the other thing that we talk, and we're all involved in this, is that shuttle. And I think if that gets up and running, I think we need to post and make, public the fact that that is available if we get this up and running.
Chris doesn't know it yet, but at the selectmen's meeting yesterday, the selectmen asked, we're gonna go over the bus system and talk about signage and
Yeah.
all of that for the upcoming season. So the
Especially-
selectmen asked us
Yeah,
to do that.
we can talk about that later, but yeah.
But I mean, how this fits in with the evening operations and all of that. Because that's something we've never dealt with.
Right.
Bus stops being
Exactly.
in use in the evening and stuff like that. And so, we'll have to select which ones to use, make sure that lighting is available.
Yeah, we talked about all of that.
Yeah, so we'll
Further that conversation.
have that.
Is there any concern about pedestrian safety considering the low level of lighting in town in general? This is gonna generate a lot of more pedestrian
Well,
traffic.
we are actually, you should see the digging going on.
They were putting
Today
the light
or-
up the other day, so it's probably
Yeah,
up.
so starting yesterday, we're putting the light at the intersection of Valley Road and Village Road on the golf course
It's already up.
side.
The light's up.
The light, they got the pole up, so, yeah, they started yesterday, I didn't know if they had finished that and driven up there yet. So light, will be there, that's one of our solar powered lights. So hopefully it'll be like the one across from the athletic center, so. See how it works. But that should get people across Valley Road, there should be a
I'm just
lot
concerned because
better
quite
lit.
often, as you know, we're out walking a lot, and very few people actually stop to let us cross when we're waiting at crosswalks. So
Yeah, they don't like, well, let's hear it, try to run it.
Because the sidewalks in the winter are tough to
Yeah,
to walk on. That's why most people walk. on the
Sidewalks in
road.
the summer, tough to walk on.
Yeah, but especially in the winter time, it's just hard to keep them clear. They're always icy and people walking the road, so at night it'll be, you have to ask them to wear reflective vests or something.
Well, the sidewalk also from the storage shed over towards the golf clubhouse.
Yeah.
That is always,
Ice rink.
it's terrible.
You could skate there.
Yeah, yeah, and you can't walk on, you can't
Right.
walk on that sidewalk in the wintertime half the time.
I know,
I was talking about puddles over.
Yeah.
That's right, that's,
Yeah.
that one's ridiculous.
So it's gonna be a little hairy there for people to walk from the storage shed over to the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And that whole section from the town all the way over to Golden Path Road as well, it's always, that
Yeah.
sidewalk there is always solid ice.
Yeah.
There was a lot of discussion about temporary storage and temporary lighting. And it doesn't, I can't find any place in the application where that's listed, showing where that is.
The submittal said that the lighting will meet the town lighting ordinance, will comply with the town lighting ordinance.
I'm sure it will, I just was wondering if it might be stated somewhere or shown somewhere that there's going to be a temporary light and that it's going to be generator run.
The application says, lighting during operating hours will be provided by a portable generator with a light tower. The lights will comply with the town's exterior lighting ordinance and will be shielded to reduce generator noise.
Okay, what about the shed?
We don't know enough about
Yeah.
the shed.
Again, we, temporary, anticipated to be over somewhere near the base of the hill, tucked away. We didn't wanna fix and permanently.
I know what
location.
I know what you're planning, I guess my
Yeah.
point is that because it came up in discussion and it's part of the thing, and there was some questions about it, can we show it on the plan somewhere, possible location could be moved, or maybe even state like you did the lights in the verbiage here?
For you, Bill, for
It just seems like it was in a discussion and it's not really shown anywhere.
Because we're still discussing it. To be honest with you, if they decide to use a green thing like David's proposing over here, and it's tucked over in the trees by the gazebo, that would be a tent permit issued by the select or Chris through the town, right?
Mhm. Yes.
But because we're discussing it verbally here, I would like to see it someplace on the application, I guess is my point. Also, the snow fence that's gonna be lining the two sides, I just would like to see it on the application somehow, somewhere, whether you do it on the plan. I've given up on plans, I mean, if it's wanna do it verbiage, then that's fine. I'd like somehow to be assured that that temporary storage will be removed at the end of the season, so that it's not a shed that stays there all the time. And that there's only one set of lights as opposed to several, I mean, if that's the intent, that's what I understand now, is this one set of lights that you're gonna be putting here, and if it doesn't work there, you're gonna be moving it over. So it should be stated there's gonna be one set of lights, not four sets of lights.
I'm a little hesitant saying that there couldn't potentially be a second set of lights, because one option would be to dim the first set and bring in two lesser bright sets. So that is an option. I think we really, I'm hesitant putting that in writing and then going back on it.
Would you put it in writing that there's a possibility you might have two sets of lights?
Sure.
Would there be three perhaps, or, I mean?
It starts getting cost prohibitive at that point for us, so.
What if they came in if there were more than two?
Yeah, we
What
could
if you
come back.
came back if
We
there were
could come
more
back
than
with
two?
more than two, that would be fine. I really don't anticipate more than two. that would be a real problem for us in a variety of different other reasons, for a variety of other reasons. So,
I'm just trying to make sure that everybody knows up front what to expect. And if, once the operation is going, if you were to come and say, you need a third set of lights, we're not gonna say no, because when somebody breaks their ankle as a result of not being a light there, we're not gonna be wanting to take that. So if you anticipate
yeah,
four,
I think that'd be fine. If we, what if we, to your point, what if we simply said,
Up to
if
four.
additional lighting is required beyond two sets of tower lights, notification will be given or request for.
That's not what I'm interested in at this point, not me anyway, I mean, everybody else may want that. I just want you to tell me what you think the maximum number of lights you might have on there, that's all. So that people would know now what the possibility is with regard to lights.
But I see the challenge in that they just don't know. And we're hugely interested in keeping it safe, as well as not being a huge source of unwanted light. So there's a fine line that I'm sure everyone's interested in walking, but how, it seems to me like more than two, that they would come back with more than two would be
I
a
think that would probably
reasonable
satisfy it.
wording.
If you
Yeah.
have two, you need a third or a third and a fourth, that you have to come back to discussion.
I think that'd be fine. That would be fine with me because again,
But if you're talking about this one light is supposed to light up how many acres?
they claim seven.
Seven, okay.
So I think
And
it's-
we have such a small area, I doubt that you would,
I severely doubt we'd have to go beyond 2 lights.
Right.
Yeah. Like I said, we have other problems at that point. But again, that's why we kept this design to, it's really an acre, less than an acre on the hillside, and that was one
so
of the
you
ideas
probably
of keeping
shouldn't
it.
need more than one anyway.
Shouldn't need more than one acre, should.
So why don't we put it at one and then come back to the board if you need two?
I wouldn't feel comfortable with that, to be honest, because again, if we decide to dim them down and go with the second one, I think we need a little flexibility there. Even if we wanted a mini lighting system, to your previous point, on just on the
Right.
pathway.
Yeah, the pathway.
The pathway,
The
yeah.
pathway
Yeah,
is
the
the lighting
pathway
spot.
is scary.
I'd be willing to accept that anything beyond 2 lighting systems temporary lighting systems, would come back for discussion.
Two of the same type of lighting? Is that what you're referring to,
Yes.
or would it be different?
Same type, yeah, 2 of the same type.
Because of the number of things that are just untried and we're not sure of, and, we're gonna try this, we're gonna try that, would you be agreeable to, getting some sort of an approval for this season and then come back in April?
Yeah. That would be tough. The capital investment we're looking at here is upwards of $40,000. And we don't plan to recoup that in the first season. So that would really, really increase the financial risk for us. So with all due respect, I'd prefer not to do that, just on a season-by-season basis. Yeah, that just changes the financial model. Changes the risk. Trying to keep it small.
Well, what if it was not an approval thing, Chris, that it was just a discussion of how it went, location of the light,
Sure, of course.
that sort of thing, but it wasn't actually taking back or ending the approval in April, but it was to just conduct a review, a discussion about it, understanding, just so you could get input from the board.
Oh, I think that'd be great, yeah, we'd want input from everybody.
But to have it on the agenda, and so that you'd have to come back and the board would know that they could make comments about it, but not pull the approval.
To what end? I mean, what would be why put that time into it?
Because you have a formal discussion at a public meeting and they get input into the operation. And you guys get to say, hey, please consider changing this.
Okay, so we have that option at that
Well,
discussion?
right, but it's not an end of the approval, but it is a formal planned meeting so that you can provide input back to them.
Would there be anything that would be enforceable in that?
Well, I mean, if we felt that the lighting didn't conform to the dark sky, there are ways for us to look at that.
Any
That's a
safety
selectmen's
issues?
issue, isn't it?
That,
Not
it
planning
is a
board issue.
selectman, well, and maybe the meeting happens at a selectmen's meeting and not a planning board thing. I don't know.
Any safety issues?
The safety issues and the lighting issues will be ongoing with the selectmen after the approval. And I'm not in any way, because they have to make the investment, I'm not in any way saying that it would be a no approval thing, but it would at least provide the opportunity for a discussion. That's all.
Sounds reasonable, it does.
So if I could, just so I don't understand the process as old as my counsel. Because my only hesitation is obviously if we do get permission to go forward, we want to go forward now for erosion issues and to make sure we're securing ourselves on the environmental stuff and we're not running into the frost issues. If, for example, if you're comment on the lighting, we'll submit something back in writing. What would the process be in terms of getting approval? I mean, I can get that to you in a matter of an hour. And you know, we can even show proposed location for the temporary housing of the tubes. We can put that on the map as well. But I don't understand the process, how that might hold us up in terms of getting approval, getting our contractors moving forward. I just don't want to hold it up to the next meeting.
I think we can get it within an hour. We can just, you know, hold this off. And if we come back and finish it off.
Or do we do the same with the contingency like we used to?
Well, I'd rather just wrap it up if we want to talk an hour. Dave wasn't gonna be able to do it today, so, but this, it sounds like you just want some wording to capture all the things that we discussed.
Yeah, but I don't think I'm gonna get what I was requesting, so I don't think it makes much difference.
So you say we don't need anything other than what we have?
Well, I guess
mean,
it's up to the board.
We captured it all in minutes. The minutes certainly captured all of our discussion. So it's
Yeah.
documented. Yeah, I know, it's different than having it here.
Yeah,
Why could you not put a contingency in for no more than 2 lights without additional approval? That we talked about operation being a 6-month period. That way you take the summertime out of it, all of those concerns are out. No operation past 10 a.m. or 10 p.m.
Yeah,
That takes care of the time issue that
well,
came up.
you either approve it for 2 lights, or 1 light, or 4 lights, but you can't say, I'm gonna approve it, and then you come back and we'll determine later on whether 3 lights are necessary.
Okay,
because
so approve
you've
it
already
with
got the
2 lights.
approval, yeah.
So approve it with 2 lights.
Yeah.
And
Well,
anything
I don't
beyond,
think that Chris was, I don't think he was.
No, I think 2 lights,
acceptable.
I gotta tell you, I
He
think
said
2
2
lights would be fine. I mean,
But you weren't willing to put it on there because you said we don't know if we're gonna go to 3.
No, it was 1 to 2.
Yeah, 1 to 2 would be fine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear.
All right, I misunderstood.
yeah,
That was my fault.
that's why I said 2 lights,
Yeah.
because he said he'd come back if it was gonna be more than
And
2.
you're comfortable with that lighting up the footpath to the top, for safety purposes? Enough lighting?
Yes.
Well, then I think it should be stated somewhere if, as part of the contingency. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for the documents to have what the maximum number of lights would be.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be going for approval. And then if, at some point in time,
If
you
we
need
need
more
more,
lights,
we'll let
you
you
gotta
know.
come back and get another approval. I mean, that's
Yeah,
what-
but you're setting the maximum number of lights. It's not him providing you with a document. Your approval will have contingencies A, B, and C. You're setting the maximum number of lights that you're approving.
That's okay, as long as we're with Chris or whomever it is that's going out there to check and make sure that everything abides by what the approval is. He has the actual verbiage. Because it's not gonna show on the plan, it's not gonna show in the application.
Oh, right, no, he'll have that verbiage, he'll have the verbiage of your contingencies on for your approval.
I don't think the board wants to be liable for a lighting issue that may cause a safety problem.
You're not going to be, because all you're telling him is that if he has to go to the third and fourth light to be safe, he's just gotta come back into you to get that approved. And he would provide why he wants light sets number 3 and 4.
But isn't it different I would be happier if they were requesting 2 lights and we approved 2 lights, then the safety issue goes back to the mountain as opposed to.
No, you're fine. There's no liability for you because you're not saying you can only have 2 lights. You're not saying that. You're saying under this application, and to start, he's allowed up to 2 lights, okay? If he needs more, you have in no way impeded him from coming in and saying, I need a 3rd and a 4th set of lights. However, you're protecting the town in the sense that he can't go in there and just put up 7 sets of lights and flood the whole area, even though I know that's not his intent. You're just limiting it right now to the 2 sets because everybody agrees that'll be safe.
If the noise becomes an issue, how does that get dealt with? I mean, right now, we're saying up to 2 lights, the 2 lights get out there, it becomes quite a noise issue. Still meets town ordinance because it's, the town ordinance with regard to decibels, I think is probably pretty high.
Yeah, it is.
And so everybody says, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this. And, we were told it was gonna be quiet, I can hear it all over the valley. That's not the case probably, but I mean, let's say it does happen, does occur. At that point, there's not much you can do about it.
Well, in addition to that, I'm concerned about the snowmobiles going back and forth. That's a noise issue as well. And I don't want to be listening to snowmobiles going up and down the hill, at 10 o'clock at night.
I think that this is such a new venture, and I also think that it's such a venture that we, as the town of Waterville Valley and the mountain, should be doing to expand our exposure to the outside world, and we're not gonna know until we run through a season to determine what the noise factor is going to be, what the lighting factor is going to be. We're not going to know until we get up and running. And yeah, we all have concerns. It's something new in the village, and it's going to be an adjustment. But do we want to stay behind the 8 ball and say, well, this, that, and the other thing, or do we want to give it a shot and say, let's let the mountain go ahead and try to do this and face those issues? Is there any recourse that we have, Mark, after the fact if we find?
Well, you're gonna approve it, and that's it goes back to what Chris said, it's not economically feasible for him to just
Right.
do this for 1 season.
Right.
And, I
But
don't
sit
think it's
down and
fair to him.
perhaps have a discussion with you that these are the issues that we were faced with last winter. What can we do to circumvent them from happening again this year? Is there something we can do? It's like anything else that's new in the town. It's new. And it's going to have to be an adjustment for all of us, but it's also a good thing for the town and the mountain.
Yeah, to add on to what you're saying, we are a resort town fundamentally,
Right.
and this is something that has been lacking, the tubing.
mean,
And yes, there are unknowns, and it's hard to,
Exactly.
but it's fitting, it fits right along with the whole aspect of what we're looking for.
I think it's a good idea. We are, however, talking about bringing outside recreational activity to the valley floor, you know, in and amongst, residential community, so, I mean, I think I'm in favor of it, but that's really what's happening here.
Well, it's zoned recreation, so it's all
Yeah.
allowed
Yeah.
use. And I think the town has a noise ordinance. I think it limits the hours of some things, right? I'm not sure, from 8
Yeah,
to 10 or
that's,
something.
that's mostly been applied in the past to contractors
Right.
and actual work,
But it would
you know,
certainly
construction work.
apply to,
Oh, yeah, it
you know,
applies,
I mean,
you know,
right.
you can, if you say that your approval is stop at 10 o'clock, then he would have to come to the selectmen
well, I think
if he wanted to operate it beyond that.
the noise ordinance go into like 8
Well-
to 10 or probably less.
Oh,
So-
yeah, no,
so
it
if there
cuts
was
off at,
excessive
it
noise,
cuts
then-
off at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cuts off at 5.
So I mean, if
Or
there was
6.
excessive noise, there
6.
is a recourse.
Well, yeah, except you'd be going into this knowing and approving it for operation beyond the
Right.
6 o'clock.
Right.
Yeah.
But then it would go to the selectmen and, you know, obviously if this turned into, you know, drunken parties at midnight,
Right.
we'd
Yeah.
have an
Right.
issue.
Right.
But it's not going to.
And then the other added factor, I think, if we get this shuttle thing up and running for the season at night to alleviate a lot of the traffic with the cars in the valley and push the utilization of the shuttles, that would be a big plus too.
And you know, we have to look at the pedestrian, I mean, if we're gonna encourage people to walk there, I'm
Right.
very concerned about those sidewalks that you talked about.
Right, yeah.
But there isn't really anything other than additional maintenance efforts that we can take this year, and it may lead to good ideas in how to fix the sidewalks.
Right.
Cause it may show us where
Right.
where the problems are even more. I mean, we're all pretty aware of where the.
As far as the noise is concerned, actually, it could be, that light could be hauled right out there to its nearest its proposed location and let it run up until 10 o'clock at night. See what it sounds like.
Ahead of time?
You have
Right
any
now?
reason not to do that?
Well, you said that, you know, the trees aren't cut down here. It's
Well, I would
reflection
assume that
off
you'd put it at
hill.
the base of the slope probably, on this side of the trees, because I don't cut a place to put it now. But just to set it over there to get an idea.
The other thing is that area all staked out where things are going to be cut? So we do see that little clump of trees there, so we're not walk the site? Okay.
There's one contiguous ribbon that goes up around there that marks the cut
Okay.
area.
I saw the one down lower, but I didn't see the one at the top. Okay.
If you go take a bucket to pick up Ray's golf balls and.
How many buckets do you come out
Probably
with?
you could take 2 buckets with you and not have a problem coming back empty.
One bucket would last me several years.
One?
Because usually when I go and look for mine, I come out with somebody else's, so they're all alike.
You know, we know that they're going to be minor issues no matter what. I mean, I look at the hockey teams that come in here and we have issues with them. You know, and we're gonna have minor issues with people no matter what, but this is a resort town. And if it helps, if this thing is gonna help some of what goes on in the base of the floor of the mountain as far as the shops and the restaurants and all of that, that would be a great thing.
But do you really think that the people that are going there are gonna go to the shops and the restaurants?
Well, hopefully some of those
Well, I mean,
people
that
are
would be
gonna come
nice.
from the Golden Eagle and they're gonna come from
It's
the surrounding
no,
community.
It's a bigger picture than that. It's people saying, oh, there's more than just hanging out in
Yeah.
Town Square to do a water event. Let's
Right.
stay there instead of in Lincoln.
Yeah.
It's a bigger picture thing.
Oh, we can skate
Yeah.
outside and.
This
Yeah.
could
I think it's
really
a great
bring
idea.
camping and Taunton and
Yeah.
Plymouth people.
Exactly.
I don't see the purpose of having them lug the generator over to the golf course. I mean, if we're gonna approve something here today, then we're gonna approve it. And if you wanna feel good about hearing it out there, that's one thing, but I don't think that's gonna have anything to do with whether we approve
approve this. Well, I was more thinking in terms of whether that is an acceptable lighting method, if we go over there and, or get some complaints or something that night, that you might say, well, maybe that's not the way to go with the lighting.
What alternatives are
And around wire.
If I could, unfortunately, there aren't many. I think the only way you, to your point, I think you're right, but I think you're gonna find those, if those complaints are gonna come, you might not know till Christmas week. You know, some people are really here.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing it on Thursday night in October.
It isn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Well,
It isn't gonna
That's
have the
the
safety.
residents.
So there are,
Well, even though you didn't, I guess I wasn't necessarily thinking you'd get complaints from the people, but if any one of the board members was to walk in the evening, such as I do, and go by there, and that was, you know, you could tell better whether that sound, maybe you'd walk out here and it's not gonna be too bad, and maybe over there, echoing off that hill. And I'm not saying that just to be, you know, a hard ass here, I just know the way it echoes off that. And, I'm trying to avoid a situation where we end up with something that we kinda wish we hadn't, you know, we'd looked into it a little bit further. Maybe right now, you're saying that's the best alternative there is for the lights, but.
Yeah, just to be clear, the lighting aspect, generator fixed, all that, that's been the one thing that's taken up 80% of our time, both from a sound and lighting standpoint. So, you know, with all this discussion, if I could, I'm right with you, 100%. These are the things that we've been tossing around for 6-8 weeks now. But we feel very confident this is far and away the best, safest, easiest, quietest way to do it.
Because I would think, let's say that you're not willing to go with the underground wiring, it's too large an expense, and the vaults are an issue with the golf course and so forth. At some point, once it's determined, well, this is where the light should go, but it's still going to be a generator-powered light. There's a possibility that you could somehow separate the light from the generator. I mean, the unit you're talking about right now is all one unit, but there are units that are separate from the light. So you could mount the lights and house the generator in some sort of a bunker or something that would be a little bit more soundproof. But, I mean, we have no way of saying, if that's the case, would you do that? Because you don't know.
Right.
And that's my concern, is that there may be other methods, but we're not getting our point across that if there are other methods, that they should be used.
But our regulations are not that specific. What you regulate is not at that level. And that's my thing, that's part of why you have the discussion in April. Let him know that that's a problem, but understanding that you can't regulate it.
No, but my point, I guess I'm leading back to this idea of why it's important to put the generator out there now, to hear it now, so that if somebody walks by and says, wait a minute, this is louder than I had anticipated. So maybe we should be addressing this now. Maybe we should be addressing it by saying, on the approval, as soon as you find a permanent location for that light, you separate the light from the generator, you house the generator in some sort of a soundproofing bunker.
But what you read says that he'll soundproof it. What's on his application says that there is a section in there that says that it will be shielded.
I think going back to what you're saying, Carrie, then run the generator for tonight with the lights on, and let us get involved in looking at that, and if there needs to be some discussion, we can have some discussion, you know?
If I could, look, we'd be happy to bring the generator over there right now, if you want. I mean, the lights are gonna be kind of what they are, unfortunately, like I said, slight chance we may even need two, so.
But I would appreciate it if you would do that. Now, listening to it right now is gonna be better than listening to it here. So that's one step better, unless it's gonna interfere with golf. I don't know, they're playing golf there today, Bill, I don't know.
I don't think you'll interrupt any golfers.
Unfortunately.
But at least I could get some sort of an idea. I would have a much better idea of whether I'm approving something that is really not gonna be much of an issue, or something that I think could be an issue.
So would we adjourn this?
Yeah.
From this location to that location?
Go over there and then come back, just say a time that you're gonna come back here, and that's all you need to do.
And if you could put it at the toe of the slope, pretty much in the middle of where that area is going to be, because it's gonna be one side or the other. And face it in the direction that it would be facing, so that you can get as close to a situation as a true one. I appreciate it.
And then we can play night golf.
Oh,
Why not?
yeah, with those, what,
Glow in the
iridescent
ball, glow in
glow
the
balls
dark.
or whatever they're called. Supposedly.
Let you run over it. Oh, is it? It's brand new.
So it could be
Site
that.
visit, I love site visits.
Yeah, site visits are exciting.
So I guess we'll recess this.
Or do we give them time and try to finish?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it just
why
gives
don't
about 10 minutes, they'll bring it on.
Yeah, let me, I have one thing that I
We
can
have
talk
other
to you
things
about
on-
while we're
So
setting
we have other things, when it,
On what?
well, we can talk about the skateboard park
Yeah.
review.
No, the
Well,
guys
Just
who
left.
just left, who were here to talk to you, they're the same guys who were setting up the generator.
We do have a committee report. though.
We have a committee report.
Okay,
We can do it in 10 minutes.
And I have the CIP to talk about
Chris, you
too.
gotta think about monkey
You got
trunks
time.
next.
okay.
I would love to think about monkey trunks. If you wanted me to think about monkey trunks, we're on it.
I think it's another thing, that'd be awesome.
And it's really quiet.
No idea what you're talking about. A rope course?
Rope course.
Here.
Yeah, right.
Monkeys are bad.
These shrieks of
Oh, instead of
delight
just-
slash
I don't wanna-
fear.
You know, I just think we need to jump on
I used to
things.
jump out of airplanes and I can't do that.
Axe stroke to the summer.
I used to hang out the door.
Logging,
120
logging,
miles an hour.
whatchamacallit.
A logging
Very
contest. where
There
we're-
you go,
where
there you
we're
go,
running on the logs
Conference
and
one.
talking-
I got a
There you
picture.
go.
I got a picture. I'll show you some.
All right, I'm gonna head over with these
Oh, that
guys.
would be
and-
so.
All right.
You should put that in your office.
They want to see us about this.
Yep.
Yeah, give us the everyone just do it.
We're ready.
So, committee report.
Committee report? Okay. So our subcommittee for parking and sidewalks, we had met, well, amongst ourselves, of course, first. Then we had a meeting the end of December, where Chris and Bill, Tom Gross, and, thank you, Matt Hester, were present, along with the three, Nancy, Cindy, and I. Kathy wasn't able to make it to that. And we just had about an hour-long discussion about the issues of parking and the flow of traffic and people through the valley, and what, you know, as people who are dealing most with public parking as well as movement of people through the valley, thought they were a good representation of folks to get opinions from. And we kind of came out with two main thoughts. The first, that a consultant would really be helpful, if not necessary, simply because it's a really difficult formula to come up with. You know, how what we have for private parking connects to movability of people with sidewalks and shuttle, and also what we have available for public parking. It's all one big picture, and it's really, I don't think anyone has the expertise to know how to create that flow. The second thing kind of connected to that was that everyone agreed that it'd be really helpful to have a trial basis of evening shuttle running, like what Chris was talking about, for Fridays, Saturday nights, and holiday weeks, where the shuttle would be extended into evening hours with valley floor service, of course not going to the mountain, kind of similar to the summer service, with the understanding that it would have to be very delineated bus stops and more exact timing of pickups, especially at the major hubs in the valley, you know, the eateries, the town square.
The rec center.
Right, on those
White Mountain Athletic Club.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
places
that,
like that.
right, and just to see if that, on a trial basis, if that could help ease up the parking congestion in the evenings, because that seems like when it creates the most hazard. So that, very briefly, I'm sure you guys could fill in more details, but that was essentially, and then I've been waiting to hear, I wanted to go next, spoke briefly at the Resort Association meeting, and I wanted to go to the selectmen, but we don't have a budget, and those were the numbers Chris was gonna bring to us, of about how much that they would project that trial bus service would cost. because he did make a verbal agreement that the mountain would pick up the half of that cost, but then a quarter of that cost is the town and a quarter to the Resort Association. And we don't have those figures yet to really go to the other two groups to see if that's feasible.
How long is the trial period? Are you going for an entire season, or are you going?
The winter season,
So
Friday,
once you
Saturday.
start it, that's it for the winter, no matter usage or whatever. It
Right,
takes people
it'd be
time
like
to
to
get
make that
used to
commitment,
it, so.
exactly. You know, we would look for everyone to make the commitment that the buses would run and hopefully they wouldn't be empty. But then it was also brought up that possibly the town bus could be used because that was smaller. So there are a lot of pieces to that puzzle that we still.
Yeah, we don't know.
And we feel like the budget, the speculative budget from the mountain would be kind of a first step for that, and we just don't have that figure yet.
Would that have to go to town, the town's portion? Is that something that would have to go to the town meeting?
I was hoping the selectmen would be able to approve or
It
disapprove.
would have to go to town
Town
meeting.
meeting?
It would be the selectmen's decision whether or not it was a separate warrant article or whether it was just included in the operating budget. Again, not knowing how much it's gonna be.
Yeah,
I mean, if it's $4,000 or $5,000, that's one thing. If it's $20,000,
which it can't
that's,
be.
which it can't be, because that would be $80,000
I mean, looking at what the
additional.
budget is
Right.
now, we know, I mean, we can guess, it's just I wanted their expertise behind the numbers.
Right, I mean, we're paying right now $48,000 is a quarter of the cost. That's what the town pays.
Mhm.
So
The whole season
they're
running
looking at
up
a,
and
what,
down,
$200,000, a little less than $200,000 budget for the buses for the year.
Right,
So if you're gonna add 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours in the evening for a couple of weeks out of the year, you can extrapolate the number what it should be, but I agree that we should wait and see what they say it's gonna cost. Because you can evaluate too whether you think that's reasonable.
So you must be talking about approving of, you want to get this off the ground this year, right?
We'd like to.
Well, town meeting's in March,
The
so.
selectmen have a contingency portion in the budget. You know, they could, if they want to, they could say, we have contingency for the rest of this year that we haven't used. And we could have contingency next year where they could say, yeah, if it's $5,000, $6,000, they could commit to doing that.
The other thing I think is gonna be really important is getting the word out at various locations that, you know, take the shuttle, don't drive, you know, if it's the eateries or if it's the clubs or whatever.
The condo hotels.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we've all discussed with
The
them.
other thing is the people walking in the roads in the winter.
Mhm.
Sidewalks, unless we have a person here, virtually 24/7. It's hard to maintain the sidewalks.
Sure.
People walk on them before you plow them, they ice over. You know, unless you have unless the town says we want a dedicated person doing just sidewalks, people are gonna walk in the roads. The sidewalks are not conducive to use in the winter. And, you know, I've been talking to Jim about just plowing the roads extra wide and giving us all more room to, so that's why we try to push the snow back as far as possible, because we understand they're gonna walk in the roads, they're not gonna use the sidewalks. Unless we keep them perfectly clean, and that's impossible at this point in time.
yeah, so, I mean, the bus thing is sort of a little bit on hold while we're waiting for that number, and hopefully today put a little extra pressure that we will get the number
It would be
faster.
nice to get the buses running, and it'll keep people hopefully from walking in the roads.
Exactly,
You know,
yeah.
get them on the buses and move them around.
And why we haven't thought of this a while ago is.
Well, Chris and I already have talked about, even in the daytime, and especially midweek, limiting the bus, rather than just have the buses driving around empty all day. Set times
Well,
and
that's
let people know and
Yes,
be
right.
there at
Yeah.
the time you say you're gonna be there.
Well,
And then maybe he only has to run half of what he's currently running
Well, that's what he's looking
and
at too.
still.
Well, that's, yeah, Chris had
Yes,
said they were
so
looking
we've
at doing that.
been talking about that for a while here.
Chris
and-
brought that up.
Yeah,
To eradicate some of the ones that are very close to one another,
Mhm.
that aren't being used, and have like times, like you said.
but like I pointed out to him, he's gotta tell his bus drivers,
Yes.
no matter what people tell you or ask you to do, you can only drop off at the bus stops.
Right.
Because
Right.
we've got a lot of unofficial bus stops around
Mhm.
town
Yes.
because
Yes.
somebody owns a
Yeah.
condo and wants to get dropped off at the door. The bus drivers are providing good customer service,
Yeah.
but they're screwing up the timing of the route. They're going to places that are not on the route because people ask them to. It's not safe. Some of the spots that they're stopping are on hills or on Valley Road, and they're stopping in the middle of the road. So we need to clean that up.
But besides from the buses, the other, I mean, getting a consultant in here is a really important part of it, and I think it's something we have to get going on quickly. And as far as writing a request for quotes or proposal, that's really above my head. So I don't know.
Who do we go for
Well,
help?
How do we get help?
the
Yeah.
consultant is problematic. We budgeted $90,000 to do that, and even if it's 50,000, we don't have that amount of money in the
But would
budget
we
to be
do a
able to do it.
request for a quote and then go back to town meeting and
Yes.
present? So
Yes.
we'd have to get.
So the work would be done next summer.
Right.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that would be fine. Then we could put that back in, have somebody speak to it,
Right.
and present it.
I certainly
Better,
think that
yeah.
part of that, I mean, you talked about the parking and the buses, and I think that's all good and fine. And you mentioned the sidewalks, but I think the sidewalks are a
Sidewalks,
critical
no,
part of
they're-
it.
Oh,
It's part of- it's part of it.
it's all tied
Absolutely.
together.
Widen the
Yeah.
sidewalks and
Yeah.
perhaps even
Yeah.
think about heating them, because
Yeah.
the only way you're gonna keep them clear is to heat them.
Mhm.
And so I think it has to be looked at. I think you do.
Well,
have to look at it.
Geothermal.
Actually,
He said,
I've lived in places that have had, here in New England, that have had heated, steam,
Was it
steam
effective?
heated. Oh, very.
And
Yeah.
people have a tendency to walk, if they're wide
Oh,
and they're
absolutely.
clean,
Yeah.
they will walk, and I
Yeah.
think that's a critical
Yeah.
part to what you're talking about
Yeah,
as far as.
definitely, yeah. I didn't
especially when
even
you get
gloss
to be
over
my
that.
age.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, I almost killed myself on some of the sidewalks
yeah.
that you mentioned already, and I said,
But-
you just can't do this.
It's
But that should be-
very
when you get to the
expensive,
quote for the consultant,
very
they ought to
expensive.
Right. So, but what is our next step for writing that request for, because we have to get 2 or 3
Bids.
proposals, bids, yeah.
Yeah,
So
whatever.
what's our next step with that?
I can go to the municipal manager listserv and see if other towns have done that.
Okay.
I can talk to Molten Borough, other resort-type communities, see if they've done anything like this. You actually had some contacts with
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
We could also look at a town like Telluride or some other ski resort or some town in Vermont that may have done this
Mhm.
same
We just
thing.
don't
So
know
we
how
just
to
need to
go
reach
about-
out to,
Yeah, I mean, both Bill
To
and
those
Chris
towns.
had offered up numerous contact names, which is great. I just don't know the official.
those would be
town.
the ones that we would send the
Right.
request of proposals to. I'm
Right.
looking more for the document of
Okay.
The
what the
proposal.
proposal
Yeah.
looks like.
Okay.
So we'll try the listserv first,
Okay.
and try to make some email contacts
Okay,
with other
good.
resort communities
Okay.
to see what the deal
Yeah,
is.
because we'd like to get the ball rolling on
Yeah.
that, because we'd like to present it to town meeting.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
On the sidewalk thing, it's not part of your committee thing, but.
No, it is.
It is.
No, I know, they are in general, but what I'm about to say, those 2 areas at the end of the new Green Peak, I brought it up to you, I think.
The lip,
Yeah, there's about a 1-inch lip from where the paving of that sidewalk was put in, at least, it's not level by any means.
yes. I have talked to Jim about that, and I thought that they
Okay.
were just gonna put a little, like a slope
Yeah,
piece of cold patch or something
right, that
to
would
make
probably
sure.
take care of it, but.
But I'll
In
make
the
sure that
dark, you're
happens. It's still there.
think that enough time? So we might-
Yeah.
Well, I just got one more, I got one more thing.
And I
One more
just wanna
thing.
go over one thing too.
Well, do your.
All right, I offered to go to the New Hampshire DOT transportation meeting, which was held in Meredith, and introduce ourselves. We're new to Ray Burton's section of the state because they've shifted different things around. And it was basically, Mark and the selectmen have a proposal for the 2013 DOT
10-year transportation.
10-year transportation plan. And basically, there were residents there that weren't happy with a lot of the stuff that the state had proposed, but again, they're under budget constraints. But the local reps were there, the local senators were there, and Kelly Ayotte's significant whatever was there as well. But at least we made ourselves present. Basic talk was about 25B going from Route 3 in Holderness, Meredith, over to Center Harbor. And as we all know that travel that road, there's been a lot of issues going on. Also, the other thing that was brought up was the 93 construction. So basically, that's what the meeting is. They know we're present. We do have that plan now, the 10-year plan to go out. There are going to be changes on it, and they will notify us of those changes. So that was that.
We got our pavement on 49 and.
I know.
Everyone
That's what I kept thinking to
We should be
myself.
very quiet for a
I
while.
did, I was.
So another 10 years, then we can complain because it's broken up again or something, but we should be very quiet. Because Chris did a great thing getting us, finding that money. Anything else on the transportation plan? The transportation plan is upstairs in my office if anyone is interested in looking at it before they vote on it. The memo that I handed out, it's double-sided. These are the key meeting, or town meeting dates leading up to town meeting. Anything that relates to the planning board is in italics. So you are the first in this schedule here. November 11th will be the first day to accept petitions to amend the zoning ordinance. You have your public hearing when on your proposed changes? Do you, is it today?
Today.
Is it on the schedule?
it
Okay,
is.
good.
Subdivision.
Yep. So, no, subdivision is different. This is zoning ordinance.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What we have today is for the subdivision.
Okay,
Part of the zoning.
no,
No,
separate regulation.
subdivision is, we have a public hearing and we can approve it.
You can
and then
change
it's effective.
Yes,
The zoning has to go to the meeting,
that's correct.
town meeting.
So if you're proposing any changes to the actual zoning ordinance,
Right.
that should be on your schedule for the November meeting. You hold your public hearing, and then you vote whether or not to forward it to the selectmen for inclusion on the warrant. Right?
Right.
Okay. So,
Not right now.
and so you have until December 24th to get those changes identified. But that's the last day to post the notice of proposed changes to the zoning ordinance. Okay, so you should plan to, by your December meeting, have your changes done, because you can't go into January unless you have a special meeting.
We'll put any zoning changes on the November schedule, see if there's any proposals.
Yeah, because we've got to post that in the paper, and you've got to hold your public input meeting.
Right now, I don't think we have any proposed changes to the zoning.
A year with no zoning amendments? Really? Oh, that's so exciting.
It's not over yet.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah, we'll find something.
all right. Wow. That'll be so cool.
Yeah, I know it. And
Bruce will really quit, cause he'll just be standing there for 5 hours before town meeting, just for voting. Ooh.
but that- those zoning changes are voted on before the.
That's what I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
the,
so there's-
when the polls are open.
Yeah, yeah.
So there'll be just the elections.
Right.
Gonna miss the challenge of making them worded so that they're not understandable.
You don't wanna really know what they're voting for.
So anyway, if anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Okay.
Now we've wasted enough time.
You wanna head out or?
Is that, are they waiting for us to go over there? They
Oh,
are.
they are?
Oh, yeah, it's up and running.
Okay,
Oh, it's up and running?
okay.
We're coming
We'll
back.
be back.
We're coming back, Ray, right?
Oh, wait.